Welcome to Describing the Skybox, the podcast that's like a book club for people who don't think that books reward them enough for being good at them. I'm Chad Roderman.
And I'm Andy Kinnick.
And today, we're going to be talking about Nancy Drew, The Curse of Blackmoor Manor. I forgot if there was an and. It's just a colon. Mm-hmm. Which was developed by Her Interactive, published by Dreamcatcher, and was released in 2004 on Windows and DVD players.
But first, can you give us a like, a rating, or subscribe? It would be greatly appreciated. Chad, can you describe Nancy Drew, Curse of Blackmoor Manor?
Nancy Drew, Curse of Blackmoor Manor is way more of an adventure game than I had hoped that it would be. I mean, I knew it was going to be an adventure game. I will jump into this, but first, welcome to Fanbruary 2026. This is going to be, I mean, in all likelihood, longer than a month. But 4 consecutive episodes in which we're going to be talking about games that were suggested to us through many channels of communication. And unfortunately, if this is the first episode that you've listened to this year, submissions are closed for February for now.
It's never too late to submit for next year.
Exactly. You can submit for 364 days from now. So that'll be great. Anyway, I was hopeful in the first 2 hours of the game because there was a lot of clue gathering, fact finding. I have like 2 or 3 notebook pages of notes that I took just like wandering around trying to figure out like how everything tied into each other and like how to start making progress in the game. So I was a little bit sad when the game opened up a little bit more and it presented me with what I would describe as like Sierra Interactive style adventure game puzzles, more so than like a Lorelei and the Laser Eyes, more modern design that I was kind of being like, oh, is this like a rare example of an old game that did this kind of thing?
Mm-hmm.
No.
Yeah. I didn't know what to expect from this either. I kind of thought it would be like I was surprised by how hard this was. This was like missed light, basically. You're dropped into this mansion, and like the beginning hours, just walking around. It's like a very slow burn, like walking around, just like collecting knowledge about it. So very slow start. Yeah, like you're dropped into like room, like the room you start in. It's just full of like zodiac symbols and like, horoscope stuff, like books and star charts and like all kinds of stuff. And you're like, oh God. Yeah. Where do I even start?
And I was surprised, and this is one of the things I actually did like about the beginning of the game. Well, the beginning of the game I liked a lot. But one of the like actual processes that I underwent in the game that I actually did really like is that it starts you in that room with that puzzle box, and you can just straight up open it right then and there. Like all of the clues that you need for it are in the room with you. And so that was good. That was like the first element of like puzzle solving that I actually did in the game. It actually felt pretty good. It's a little simple, but it did take me a while to like piece together how I was supposed to use the information I had. But it was refreshing. But I also went in with the same thought because I'm familiar with Nancy Drew.
Mm-hmm.
I am not very familiar with Nancy. I've never read a Nancy Drew book. I was not much of a mystery book kid growing up. So a lot of this stuff was new to me, but the impression that I had of Nancy Drew was that its target audience was like early teen girls.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe there's some like innate misogyny involved, but I did go into this thinking like my adult man brain will have no trouble with this Nancy Drew game. And then I was smacked down to earth and just did so bad at solving the majority of these puzzles.
Yeah. I didn't know much about Nancy Drew either. I want to say in like 5th or 6th grade, like we did a thing where we had to read a Hardy Boys book and a Nancy Drew book or something, and do some kind of report on it or something like that. So I have read one, but I don't remember it. But yeah, I was thinking, like the Nancy Drew books were aimed at like not even teens. Like I thought they were for kids. And but apparently like there's like been a whole like long history of Nancy Drew. And like at one point they tried to transition it to be like a young adult series. So like I think as it's been more mature. So I think it's kind of run the gamut. So yeah, like I was expecting a kid's game. You know, like I was expecting. Like I had this game as a kid that was like the cartoon Madeline, like the French girl who like lived in the orphanage. We had a Madeline point and click adventure game that was pretty cool. That we played a bunch as kids, and me and my sisters. And I was expecting like that level of difficulty, I feel like, and was pretty blindsided when this was hard.
Yeah, I feel like pre 2010 there were only two kinds of point and click adventure games, and it is Myst or Sierra, like really difficult and obtuse.
Yeah, or like you have
humongous entertainment.
Yep.
Yeah, those were your where things are just on screen and the solution to the puzzle is to click on them. And there was no in between for whatever reason. I wonder why the genre kind of died out.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I certainly wasn't expecting it. And I think it's like part rose-colored glasses, like looking back, where I'm like, oh, like a game of this era would, like 2004. I have a lot to say about the fact that this game came out in 2004. Like, not a lot, but like a surprising amount.
Mm-hmm.
But I was like, in 2004, like we're past the 90s era of adventure games. So like maybe this was one that kind of took it in a different direction. But then I realized very quickly that this game was kind of stuck in the past because I would describe the visuals of this game as bordering on competent for 2004.
Yeah, it looks pretty solid.
I love them.
Yeah.
I think they look great in like a old PC nostalgia kind of way. But I thought about other games that came out in 2004 and was like, oh yeah, like we were well beyond this style of like very smooth 3D rendered models at this point. This is like a game that was made on a lower budget because it is part of a series that has like 10 million entries in it.
Right.
But I'm glad we still made games that look like this in 2004 because I personally love stuff that looks like this. But it does. It made it weird because I saw that and I saw how weird the puzzles and stuff were, and then also you have a cell phone. And email on it and can browse the web on your cell phone. And it felt really anachronistic compared to like the old manor and like how I'm envisioning like a Nancy Drew.
Yeah.
Because Nancy Drew as a character is like decades old, but is a permanent teen because that's how the books work.
Right. And like, yeah, I want to say that like, I was looking up some stuff about Nancy Drew earlier. Like, I don't remember if the phone is a thing that was introduced for the games. It's like a gameplay thing, or if it comes from that point in time where they tried to like make Nancy Drew more mature. Like if that was happening in like the 90s or something. I don't remember. But yeah, it does, because I think of Nancy Drew as being like in the 1950s or something.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's funny because, well, there's a lot of reasons it's funny, but one of the reasons that it's funny is that it's clearly a gameplay element that was introduced not in this game, because it has an email function, and then the game starts you with an email lambasting you for being cheap about your phone plan and not being able to send you emails. So there's this email function in the game that does nothing, but I presume that in previous games it was like more baked in, and they didn't want to remove it from the UI that they were reusing. That's my hypothetical. I don't know if that's necessarily true, but that's what I imagine happened. So you have a phone that has very little actual function and cannot receive emails, but can search the internet. So it's like this weird, like, I don't know. To me, it feels like it was a function that was introduced in a previous game, and then they didn't want to use the email feature in this one, but they wanted to use the exact same UI overlay.
Yeah, or like it could have been like that they were planning like a mechanic with the email or like some kind of puzzle element with it, and then they ended up cutting it. And then
that is also possible.
It would have been more work to like take it all the way out, so they just left it in there.
Ed wrote this really funny email about how it was too expensive for you to have emails while you were in Britain. Yeah, that was one thing, because I'm going to be fairly negative on a lot of points coming up here. So I kind of want to like really hone in on these couple of things at the beginning that I did really like. I was hoping a little bit that this game would be Realms of the Haunting adjacent, where it was like campy and outlandish, and unfortunately it doesn't quite get to that point. But weirdly, it did actually have some like intentionally written jokes that did land for me and were actually pretty funny. So I have to give it that. The writing is I don't know how to describe it exactly, but it is actually pretty good as far as like character writing goes.
Yeah, go figure that. Yeah, the game series based on a series of books would have good writing in it.
That's true. Notably, not all great writing.
No, but it's pulpy, you know.
Yeah, and I think it hits more than it misses for a lot of what it's going for.
I like the very like, I don't know, I want to call them like Scooby-Doo-esque characters. Like the guy in the library, is that Nigel? Yeah,
Nigel Mukherjee, which is a wild last name.
Yeah, and I don't remember which one is the one who's in the plant room.
That's
Arboretum.
Drake. They call it the conservatory.
Conservatory. Yeah. Miss Drake. Yeah, that's the one. They're just very like loud, campy characters.
And I wonder about this. So we've teased potentially doing something like this on multiple episodes. I don't know if this is one that we necessarily need to, but I'm going to spoil some parts of the end of the game here. This is a hard adventure game. Maybe you want to play it. Look into your heart and decide before listening on. I found it interesting that Mrs. Drake and Nigel are characters who are implicated in like an entirely different plot than what the main story of the game is. And like their involvement in like potential fraud is not important to you being able to complete the game, because you're only there to figure out if this lady is a werewolf or not.
Right.
Which is very teen detective. It's like, fraud? Let's let the authorities handle this one.
Yeah.
Old man Jenkins in a werewolf mask? That's more like it.
Yeah, they do all have like plausible motives. And like you get information from them, and like you're like in the middle of like them telling you all this stuff, and you're like, wait a minute, like why do you know all this?
Yeah. And like Drake is the one pretending to be the beast of Blackmoor, because she's got like the goggles with the red eyes on them. So like she is like perpetrating this hoax that seems important at the beginning of the game, but then never comes up if you don't like specifically probe into it. And then Nigel's writing a book that he wants to, that monetarily he has motive because he wants to have like a big thing. And then there's a letter that is so involved, I don't remember the details of it very well. That's in the conservatory where Drake is like, whoever Hugh is, he's married to the lady, Linda.
Yeah,
and
Hugh
there's like a
Penvellyn.
note that's like, yeah, if she's like, if she doesn't leave the manor in the first 6 months, then they'll inherit the Penvellyn fortune or something. But if
Right.
she does leave, then Drake will inherit part of the fortune. And so she's trying to scare her out by
Right.
making her think that she's a werewolf.
Which is very Scooby-Doo.
Which is extremely Scooby-Doo. It's wild. And none of it, like, you don't have to solve any of this. It's just there as background dressing. And that's maybe my favorite thing about the whole plot of the game, is that there are these other Scooby-Doo plot lines that aren't necessarily important to to getting to credits.
Yeah, one of the most impressive things about the game is like how fleshed out it all is. Like they're all of the different ancestors all have characterization and things about them. Yeah, like each actual present character has a lot going on. Yeah, as you said, it's like missable. And it's one of the things that makes it feel like a real mystery, right? Like the details are there, but like you have to find them.
Right.
And so, yeah, it is very rewarding to explore.
I just, on the note of the Scooby-Doo element, it's funny that you brought it up, and I don't think that we're going to continue talking about
Yeah,
it.
that's just so Scooby-Doo. Like, I don't know if Scooby-Doo lifted that from other things that came before it, but like somebody's trying to scare somebody off of property so that they can get it for themselves is like the plot of like 30% of Scooby-Doo episodes.
Scooby-Doo very steeped in real estate fraud schemes, weirdly. You're not wrong, though. I've watched a lot of Scooby-Doo in my day. But it's funny because a note that I made, and we can talk about like more broadly this topic, but Nancy Drew's voice actress sounds like, and I want to say this, I don't think that she's doing a bad job. Sometimes she's doing a bad job, but most of the time she sounds fine. But she sounds like a 70s cartoon character. And she sounds like a Daphne. Like, that was my point of, because it's a
Right.
difficult thing to explain, where I think that we have voiced people just generally of all demographics differently as time has gone on. There's like an expectation of what somebody's going to sound like in a television show. And I think a lot of that is like we hire a lot more mainstream celebrities that people are aware of. And so you expect their voice when you see it. So there's this like degradation of like original character voices that's happened largely. But the fact that they voiced her the way that they did makes her just sound like an adult woman, like just a fully adult woman, not a teen at all.
Yep. I have the same note. I mean, I didn't think she sounded like Daphne, but you are correct. She does kind of sound like a 70s cartoon character. But yeah, like I because like apparently all my perceptions about Nancy Drew were wrong. Because like yeah, like, I also like thought she was supposed to be like 14 years old or whatever. But like, is she like a young adult? I don't know. She might be, but yeah, like the voice actor definitely sounds like a 28-year-old woman and not like a teen. And like Jane sounds like a kid, you know? So like I also thought about that. I was like, this is just an adult woman and I'm expecting like a like a preteen or teenage sounding voice.
Yeah, not what we have, which, yeah, I don't know. It was weird the first couple of times, and it's kind of weird the whole time that you listen to it, but like you do get used to it. But I don't know, it's just like something kept feeling off. Like it felt like I was a child and I was having the story read to me by a mom.
Right.
Because of the way that her voice was, or like how they chose to portray Nancy Drew. So I don't know, just kind of a weird thing. Also, you see Nancy Drew, or I saw Nancy Drew, the character, as portrayed in the game for 1 second in the entire thing, and it was when I was eaten by a plant. Which I did die in this game, which I was surprised was a possibility.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but in that case, it was impossible to discern if she was an adult or a teen because all you saw was jeans because the top half of her body was being, again, eaten by a carnivorous plant.
Yeah, I think maybe she is supposed to be like 18 or 19 or something. Because like I feel like the way she talks to Jane is like she's someone older talking to a kid. You know, like when you play games with her, like she talks to Jane like she's older. Like, you know, like there's a bigger age gap than just like a, you know, handful of years.
Agreed. Do you have any thoughts on playing games with Jane Penvellyn?
I mean, I hated it. But yeah, like I have written down that like Chad's going to hate all the newspaper puzzles that are in this game. But yeah,
I was so happy that most of the puzzles in the game are not newspaper puzzles. Mm-hmm. But then Jane was like, "What if though?
What if there were though?" Yeah, like I think it kind of gets at the core of like my issue with this game. Is like that system of like having to like things being gated behind playing games with Jane, and also the fact that like time passes in like I don't know if it's in real time exactly or if it's like accelerated. That really led to friction for me at the beginning, like because like they're like you'll like waste time doing stuff, and then everybody's went to sleep, and then no one tells you that like you can use the alarm clock to like pass time, so that took me a while to figure that out.
Somebody didn't do the tutorial.
I did not.
Yeah, it tells you that in the tutorial and then doesn't tell you that in the game.
I didn't know there was a tutorial.
I don't even remember where I found it, but it does exist though.
Oh, weird. But yeah, so yeah, I didn't do the tutorial, but I guess that one's on me. So yeah, like that just felt like I like what they're going for, and it's like a great moment the first time you do go to sleep, and then you wake up to the chanting in the middle of the night. Like that's awesome, and then like the creepy ritual later, where they like drop oil down a hole or whatever. That's really cool, but like overall, like I feel like it didn't really add a ton, and like kind of just led to friction. But yeah. Also, not to get too far away from playing games with Jane.
Well, I think that all kind of like it meshes in a certain way. I will say I did like the time passing thing. I did to an extent. I liked it at the beginning when cool stuff was happening in the middle of the night, and like it was part of that investigatory element of the beginning of the game where it's like, oh, like part of the things that I have written down in my notes are like Jane is in lessons until 2, and so like you have to be after this certain point. But it's just like when you're actually doing the puzzles in the game, it's just like do everything between 2 and 10 p.m. unless it has to be a different time specifically. So it ended up not adding as much as it could have. But I think it did help with the atmosphere during the beginning of the game. So I'll give it a little bit of credit.
Yeah, I like it on paper. I just think in execution, it leads to like some bad pacing.
It also leads to some really non-immersive world building where I'm like, Nancy Drew came to Britain and then proceeded to sleep for 18 hours a day. Because I would like to wake up, do something, go back to sleep until 2 p.m. the next day at like 6 p.m. So it's just like I was playing this like narcoleptic cat like Nancy Drew.
Nancy came to the UK and just got sick. So she's just bedridden for most of the day.
Yeah. It's just a great time. And then she turns into a werewolf. That's the plot twist. But no, all of it, though, I feel like falls under this category, this broad category that I'm going to call filler. There's so much textbook filler in this game to sort of drag it out, which it didn't need because the puzzles, if you solve them fairly, are going to take you a million years to figure out anyway. But the way that the game does this, where it's just like the fucking glow sticks and having to solve the gargoyle puzzle and the dragon puzzle multiple times to get into the secret passageways rather than just remaining open or having it done automatically is like, it's just time that you're doing stuff that you don't need to be doing stuff. And easily they could have just taken the games out and replaced them with a conversation where you say, Jane, give me a glow stick, and she's like, here you go. Please play this video game from Arizona before doing it. So yeah, I was pretty the only one I will say I wrote most of my notes are on my phone, which is where I typically take my notes for the podcast. There's one note that I put in the notebook that I had because I found it to be such an urgent thing to write down. And that is that Bull, which if you remember is the game where you have two little dudes and they move toward each other and you roll corn to make a move. And I wrote, Bull is the least fun I've ever had. Period. One of them is just the game concentration, which I like, so I'm cool with that one. But most of them were very mid, and Bull was especially bad. Yeah. And then concentration is just a pre-existing game that I did enjoy. So I don't know. I did not like all the filler that existed.
Yeah, and to an extent, I kind of feels like it's trying to be more of that, like what we were talking about earlier in a positive way, like fleshing out of the world. Like there is almost like something to that idea of like Jane is this kid that lives here, and like like a kid, like you kind of have to like win them over, and then maybe they'll give you info. You know, like there's something to that idea that I like, but yeah, like in execution, it's just like not there. And I do like the way it like, because I called that Jane was gonna be like the one who was like causing everything about like halfway through because she knew so much about the banner. You know, like I like how it like organically I was like, man, like how does she know all this stuff? She knows where all the secret passages are. She knows where all the items are at. I'm like, I bet like she's at least involved in what's going on. Like it feels like it has to be. So there is like kind of an organic quality to that I like. But yeah, overall, yeah, gameplay wise, it is not fun.
Not extremely
the
fun.
repetitive
I do
nature,
agree.
Blah, blah, blah.
I do agree, though. There is like a world building element to it that does work. And the fact that Jane would put up roadblocks to you solving the mystery kind of...
Yeah, it's like the mystery is another game for her.
Yeah. But then, like, the mystery, though, is like, oh, you end up finding the Penvellyn treasure. And it's less, and obviously she's the one who like poisoned her mom, which is not great. I don't want to downplay her culpability in literally spiking her mom's food and lotion to turn her into a living human werewolf. But it is like there are these elements of like, oh, like you can draw the through line to see like where she is, you know, connected back to the family history and like everybody creating a puzzle to solve to get to the treasure, which is cool. And I'm glad that like it all tied in together. But it did feel kind of like there were 4 characters in the game. So maybe the mystery wasn't quite there. And you know that 2 of them are involved in a totally different scheme that's going on. So it's, yeah, I don't know. It was like it was a cool, they did a good job of building a world, but it was a world that wasn't like that interesting, I guess. I don't know. But I did like, and I feel like we've talked about this before, but I don't know if you have if you are similarly situated to me in this. I think we talked about it on Gone Home, which was 10 years ago.
Okay.
But I do love the manor and like the idea of a mansion with a lot of like secret passageways and like hidden minutia to it. So that part I did enjoy.
Yeah, no, same. I do like a big spooky mansion. Yeah, like in all like the rooms, like the room you first start in, like with all the Zodiac stuff, is super cool. Yeah, and like all the secret passageways. Yeah, no, and I'm a slut for that sort of thing too.
Yeah, so there was, I mean, I think that kind of lends itself to the fun that I was having at the beginning of the game, because there's kind of like a lot of exploration going on. It is weird to me, and maybe I missed something in my playthrough, that the kitchen is locked, and it just seems to be like legitimately unimportant. Because I never went into the kitchen at all, and it's not like the secret passageways took you to the kitchen. So they just have like why even put it? I guess they were trying to, it's like realism. Like obviously this place would have a kitchen, but we don't want to put stuff in it or model it, so we just closed it off.
Yeah, it is weird. Because yeah, like they have the whole system where you order food from the restaurant because the kitchen is closed. But yeah, like why? Yeah, they could have just had the kitchen and then have a chef that you order food from. It would have been the same thing. So yeah, you do have to wonder why. Maybe it's another thing where something got cut. Like maybe they were gonna have a kitchen. It was gonna be part of the story. Maybe there was a chef character, but it all got cut. And then they were like, "Oh, well, we'll just do this.
We'll just put a
We'll
sign
save
on
these
the door."
puzzles with the food where you need to grease the key with the butter or whatever."
You grease the key with the butter, yes. That one, I mean, obviously you have to like, there's like a back and forth where you have to like go ask for a translation for all of the Cockney slang that the guy at the restaurant gives you. Another like weirdly anachronistic thing, by the way, that there's like DoorDash in this game, in like a pre-DoorDash universe. But you do order it with like a rotary phone,
Right.
as opposed to the cell phone, which does make it a little bit more natural.
A special arrangement with the restaurant or whatever she says at the beginning.
Yeah, they like made which is, I'm not gonna, there's a weirdness to this that I can't quite put my finger on, but I'm okay with the using butter as a lubricant thing. That does not, to me, that doesn't break any rules as far as I'm concerned. The part, and I already said, this isn't a necessary thing to do in the game, but the part where you have to order turkey to then feed to a Venus flytrap is beyond the pale. There was nothing in my world that was going to inform me that that was the solution to that puzzle. I was just not gonna, I wasn't gonna come up with it.
Yeah, no, I mean, me neither.
And I think that might be the worst puzzle in the game, though there are certainly some difficult ones. That one is just like, that one is one where I was just like, none of this makes any sense from the conception of it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I wanted to ask, like, were there any that really stumped you? But like, my answer to that question is like, yeah, about 60% of them.
Same. Yeah, most of them.
Near the end of the game, especially, everything was bad. Everything was hard to do.
Mm-hmm.
I did like the ones that were sort of like self-contained, like, and there were multiple versions of this. I liked the one that was like you had to capture the winds in this like little board game where you could move programmatically. That one was cool. But then there's the one where it was like literally just read this web page and then put in ingredients based on the symbols of the alchemy door, which I hated. That one sucked so bad and had no reason being there in my estimation. So it was like, it was so hit and miss for me with the ones that were difficult. Oftentimes, I think, sort of earned their difficulty by being like something that made you actually think. But then there were other ones that were just like, we provided you the information, but in a way that was obtuse. And so it's hard to figure out where to use it. Like the sliding door puzzle on Jane's door felt like there were like 4 different places that you were getting information from to solve it. And it was difficult to just figure out where those places were. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I would agree. Like, things that stand out to me of like being cool, I think, are all towards the beginning. Like, you already called out like the puzzle box in the first room. There's like the weird spiral staircase thing where you go up it and it makes noises, and then you just use the noises to like solve the lock. It's really simple and it's just right there, but it's like kind of satisfying. Yeah, like greasing up the key and like, you know, the classic adventure game things like that. Talking to the parrot, which I was kind of like hyper fixated on at the beginning, just talking to the parrot about everything.
Even the like night thing, once you get all the keys and like line up the oil into a circle and shit, I think that was cool as well, and like was a good culmination of all of the things that happened. Like, I think that puzzle works because it's more of a puzzle and not just like a did you read all the documents in the game and write them down verbatim.
Right. Yeah, so yeah, I think just straight up agree. Like, once you get into the real bangers and mash, things are a little bit too obtuse, or just take too much like just reading everything, and then
having to have that information handy.
Yeah, having to keep it up, in the front of your brain.
Yeah. No, yeah, that was, I think, my biggest problem with the puzzles. But also, you could apply that to like a lot of adventure games from this era.
Oh yeah.
So it's almost like I am going to blame the game, and I will say that that's the thing I don't like about it. But it was also like a genre staple at the time. So it was kind of expected once I knew what kind of game I was dealing with. I do want to mention the staircase that makes funny noises when you walk up it was well hidden enough that like I probably walked by it like 15 times before I actually noticed it. And when I did go up it, and it made the noises, and then I pulled on the levers, and they made the same noises, my fucking infantile, naive brain just was like, I wonder if this is just like a funny Easter egg of the stairs that make funny noises. But like, obviously that's a puzzle. Like, it's not at all hard to put 2 and 2 together. But I was like, I just like laughed at the funny sounds and then I went on my way.
You just laughed at the funny sounds and clapped.
Yep. The game dangled keys in front of me, essentially. And I just ate it up.
I think the one last thing I have to mention is just the werewolf thing, which we've mentioned a handful of times already. But like, it's not something that like every mystery story has, but I like it when they do have something like this, where there's like a supernatural like misdirect, where they introduce this like supernatural element of like, oh, like she's like turning into a werewolf, and like you can even call up the author of this book and talk to her about lycanthropy, which is interesting. So like you have that moment where you question, you're like, is there actually a werewolf? Like, is there like, what's exactly going on here? Is it supernatural? And I like it when a mystery throws that sort of thing in.
It does lead it to the Scooby-Doo comparison, because that was like Scooby-Doo's entire shtick. But I think just like as somebody who's consumed mystery media at this point, that is like a common element of the genre, like a common theme, and I do think it works really well. It like sort of meshes with the unknown of maybe there is like something that is unexplainable, and that is part of what sort of makes the genre interesting in a way. We read The Hound of the Baskervilles, which has a similar plot in that it's a real estate related mystery. And also there's like an unknown sort of monstrous beast as part of the mystery plot. And I feel like probably this drew from that as inspiration for a couple of different things. So it was definitely in my mind as well. Like that supernatural element was a boon to making this more interesting.
Right. And then that also plays into just like the general, just like spooky tone. I was pleasantly surprised that this game's like kind of creepy and spooky. Like from like, yeah, you show up and like you get the werewolf sighting right outside the door of the manor. Like the Linda is like only ever seen from behind, or is it Linda? Which one's the one who has the?
It is Linda. Yeah.
Okay. The werewolf lady. Like you only ever see her from like behind a sheet, and then like you wake up in the middle of the night. There's the chanting, and then the weird creepy ritual. Like it just like. It's cool. It feels like an actual like spooky haunted mansion in a way that like I thought was like a pleasant surprise.
This was briefly talked about on our Discord when this game was suggested. And by this game, I mean the thing that was suggested was any Nancy Drew game, of which there are like 50. But the reason that this one was chosen was one, a personal conversation that we had about how creepy Jane Penvellyn's model is, and it's like on a screenshot on the games page. But it was briefly mentioned in the suggestions page that like that screenshot was pasted in our Discord when we were talking about Fanbruary this year, and it like the reason that we picked this one to some extent was because it seemed like a creepy one. So I'm glad, like you are, that it followed through on that feeling, what we were hoping for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Jane's weird marionette looking character model's not the only creepy thing.
Right. Do we have pergamentum thoughts?
Pergamentum?
It's the password for the computer.
Right. Yeah. My pergamentum thoughts. I just wanted to make sure I was saying it right.
That's fair.
I have mixed thoughts on this one. Because in a lot of ways, it was like a cool surprise. As we said, like I thought Nancy Drew was like a kids series and was like kind of blindsided by like how hard this was. All of my preconceived notions about Nancy Drew are apparently wrong. But yeah, like I described it as like mist light. And I feel like that's a decent way to describe it. Like, yeah, like you're dropped in. It's got that like very late 90s, early 2000s, like point and click adventure game design where there's just a lot of you're just dropped in and there's just so many details to take in and it's hard to know where to start. So that the beginning I think can be a little bit of a hurdle. I think it was a little bit more for me than it was for you, based on things you said. But yeah, but like I think overall, yeah, the game has some pacing issues. I think it has, like, as you mentioned, a lot of padding. There's like some repetitive stuff where you have to go play games with Jane a little too often, and like then once you do get into like deeper into the game and like to the meat of the puzzles, they're like pretty hard to like, you know, pull them all together and actually get them solved. So yeah, like I just feel like it's a little messy. But like I do think atmospherically it's really cool. I think the writing's pretty good. The characters are memorable. So there's a lot of charm to it. So I feel like it was like a likable experience, but like overall, like the game didn't really click with me.
Yeah. I agree entirely with that. I would say the one thing I think I talked about the game like I had a better grasp on it at the beginning. I think I went like an hour and a half, maybe longer, without making anything that the game would recognize as progress. There's just like a lot of me writing stuff down and having like trying to build a knowledge base. And I think that's relevant to the final thoughts because that is sort of the thing that I really liked about this game. I think one of the things that we looked for when we were doing Mystery May as like a detective themed month back a few years ago was games that hit that itch of making the player feel like they were solving a mystery. And a lot of that is sort of this like being smart about, you know, amassing information that's going to help you and have like a database of things to look back on so that you can deduce. And I thought that this game started really strong in that way, but fell off quickly and a lot of the information became more one use as it went on. There's like a whole web page that takes like 5 real world minutes to read through on the tiny little phone interface in the game, and that is used for like an exactly one puzzle, and it's not even like an interesting puzzle, it's just reciting the information that you were given. And I think that's kind of the problem with this one. And it's weird because I know that there are so many games in the Nancy Drew franchise that I wonder if there were ones that did this stuff better. But for me, it just unfortunately falls into that like sad middle ground where if it had been a little bit better design, or if it had been a little bit campier, a little bit wackier, or if it had been just like maybe even like worse, like maybe if it was just like a trash game, I would have found it more notable. But it's like a pretty good adventure game that doesn't do all that much that's like outside of the norm for the genre, which is my biggest disappointment with it. But I don't think it's a bad game. And I thought that some of the stuff, especially early on, is absolutely worth its inclusion. A lot of stuff that was really cool and fun to do. And it has that like very nostalgic style that I do love. So I also am kind of mixed on it. I enjoyed it for the experience. I don't love it as a game.
Mm-hmm. The experience of popping it into your DVD player.
Yeah, playing it with a remote, which I guess is a thing you could do. Thank you for listening to Describing the Skybox this week.
What will we be describing next time?
Next time, for our next Fanbruary game, we're going to be talking about Far Cry 5, which is maybe as far away from Nancy Drew as we could possibly get.
Would you say it was a far cry from Nancy Drew?
It's a far cry from Nancy Drew, especially since we played one of the Nancy Drew games that takes place in Britain, because this one takes place in America. So that'll be an interesting one. This is obviously an interesting game. If you know anything about it, it's interesting for a couple of reasons. But also, this is the first time we've talked about a Far Cry game as a franchise that really kind of defined what like the bog standard open world game is like. I think it'll be an interesting one for us to talk about because it is kind of outside of our usual zone. But until that time, you can get a hold of us. All of our contact information is on our website at describingtheskybox.com or on splattershot.pro. There you can find links to our email address, our Blue Sky account, the YouTube, and you can listen to any of our old episodes, including ones that we did for Fanbruary last year, like Darkest Dungeon or Wet from a couple of years ago. I'm so obsessed with Wet as a name that it will always come to mind.
Yeah, we did Abduction a couple years ago for Mystery May.
Yeah, if you want to hear us lose our minds over the course of a year, 2024 had so many games: Infinifactory, Abduction, Lorelei and the Laser Eyes, that like really taxed our mental capacity.
Yeah, that was a very tiresome year. We also did Braid, I think, the year before that.
These are all good.
Yeah, so if you want us to see how dumb we are, us complain about how hard things are to solve, go listen to those episodes.
That's true. Most of those are pretty good games also. So if you did enjoy this game, going to things like Abduction and Lorelei are not super outside of the
go from
realm
Mist
of things
Light
you should do.
to just Mist.
To just regular Mist. Investigate that like button.
Rotate all the hands on the dragon statue in the comment section.
Sleep for 23 consecutive hours. And then be awoken by that bell.
This game was suggested by Edamame Milkers.
This game was, let's be entirely clear, this game wasn't even suggested. This game was threatened on us. If we didn't do this game, horrible things would befall us. So obviously we had to do it.